So if any of you that are gonna speak, if you could please speak up a little bit. I did get an email about the audio being awful, so for that I do apologize. So Area 58 didn't have any additional microphones for us. So if I can ask the board and any members of the audience to speak up while they're talking, so maybe the audio is a little bit better for TV. Okay, so some of you know me by now. Welcome again to all of you, and thank you all for coming, by the way. It's really nice to see participation like this. If everybody could make sure their cell phones are silenced. It's a little bit embarrassing when they do go off. Board members will be recognized first, and then the audience, when appropriate, will be held to 2 minutes, if you would please. As the chair, I do have the right to stop anybody from being disruptive or getting into personal matters. I really don't want to do that. I firmly believe that everybody has the right to speak, as long as it's appropriate and pertinent to the topic at hand. Unfortunately, if things do get out of hand, we'll take a recess, we'll have a discussion, and then we'll continue. Area 58 is in fact recording. And again, I thank them for being here. And is anybody else recording in the room?
Yep, Jimmy Powell.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna record.
Okay, Margaret, thank you very much. Nobody else?
I'm gonna record in back.
Okay, what's your name?
Josh Farty.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.
Scott, you're taking minutes?
We've got a lot of absences tonight. So I'm gonna take minutes and run the meeting, hopefully. So I'm gonna beg for your patience as I do this so we can get the minutes appropriately recorded for the next time. Okay. I had sent the meeting minutes out along with the agenda this afternoon. They are also in your packet, gentlemen. If I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from the 31st of January 2024.
So moved. I reviewed the minutes.
Okay.
And I'll second that. I have read through.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, unanimous. On the agenda, it talks about us hearing from Mr. Woods, the Deputy Director of Carver Operations and Maintenance. He is not able to be here this evening, so I'm going to cancel his agenda item and the next one for the reimbursing to operation and maintenance for the permit patch till he can be here and explain to us in person. So based on a little bit of a debacle last time, I'd like to set the meeting date and time and meeting room before we get into the point where we have to discuss it in the middle of a public hearing. So my recommendation to you all is March 27th, it's a Wednesday, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon up in meeting room number 1 due to scheduling conflicts of the room. We run out of days or evenings upstairs, and it's previously been held by another board. I don't like to be in conflict with anybody if we can help it. So 4 o'clock in the afternoon seems to work for those of us that I've talked to. Mr. Bentley and Mr. Mason have said the same as well. So if that's okay with you guys.
Just commenting, obviously we need more seating at our meetings if we can to make it comfortable. So I support that idea. Plus, I'm old and I can be here at 4 in the afternoon.
Well, you know, in regard to meeting room 1 versus meeting room 4, like I just discussed, we've had a little bit of audio issue here. We know it. Area 58, when we go into executive session, has to break down in a rapid fashion. It's not fair to them either. So That's why I'm trying to get us all into meeting room 1, because I hate like hell to see people standing in the back of the room. Makes me uncomfortable, because I hate to stand too.
I think another thing though is the sound.
Absolutely.
That's another important fact that we need to address.
That's it.
So we need a motion for that, or?
Yes, let's have a motion for the meeting time of March 27th, 4 o'clock in meeting room 1, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much.
My pen was like, stuff.
Back to my favorite topic is the inspector or agent discussion. It is still working through process, through the glacial swiftness of town politics. Trying to get somebody on board to help us out here. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of correspondence back and forth. And when we get a candidate that's available and we get the position squared away, it'll be much, much easier for all of us here on the board and for the town to have all the appropriate documentation in the same spot all at the same time. So we are continuing that conversation with Town Council, Mr. Corbo, and Town Administrator Fennessy, and myself along the way with Kevin Forg as well. I think we're getting there. It's just slower than I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So we went on, for those of you in the audience and people at home, we did a site walk at AD Makepeace for our initial site walk for the public hearing that's coming up later on this evening. We were there for a little over an hour at the site. Had a really good conversation with Bill Madden and 2 or 3 members of the team, including the attorney. Had some good questions asked of the applicant from the board members. And then from there, we went over at Ms. Bogart's request, and there you are. Didn't see you the other day, I'm sorry about that. We were out at the street. We spent about 15 minutes out there observing what was going on, like I told you we would. We did stand on just at the edge of your driveway by your, I'm guessing that's your school bus stop right there. Very cool, by the way. So we were there till about 9:30. Anybody have any very brief comments on that before we move on to the next site visit?
I used to work on Makepeace Bog, that Wonkico bog. And that's a pretty extensive bog without any new additional cranberry bogs added to it. But I did think that, you know, it is a large farm operation right there, and I didn't see that it was really an adverse situation as I looked at it, and I'm picturing living in one of your houses or the houses in your neighborhood, you know, and so I wasn't turned off by that. I don't know, just wanted to let you know that we looked and we thought about it. So that was how I felt.
Perfect. Anybody else on the ADM site? We can talk about it in greater detail when they come up at the public hearing.
Safe discussion.
Okay. So then we went on to the Mackey Lopes site over off of Meadow Street. Spent about 15 minutes over there. Progress is in fact being made. They will be completed with the trucking by the deadline. The driveway and Meadow Street were in fact swept. We had good conversation with Dan, who was out, the site foreman, and Mrs. Mackey that was there as well. They are in fact on target. We've talked about this in the past, that they'll do the seeding after the drop dead date, and there will be no trucks, and then we'll seed when the weather is appropriate. But they are progressing.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
It's only the second time I've seen it, and there is definite progress. They're just about complete. with the side.
We then went on to Van Johnson's. Van Johnson has 2 earth removal permits. We spent, probably 40 minutes between the 2. There's quite a distance between the 2 of them on his property. Drove from one to the other. There are no more trucking. He's got some more cleanup to do on the site underneath the power line along the slope edge. And then he's got some stuff he wants to do over on the other side on the second permit for the agricultural operation that he wants to continue. Our conversation centered really around closing the permit with an as-built with Mr. Johnson on both of those, so we could get them off of our long sheet and get him off of our visit list, if you will. So I encouraged him to close those out here in the coming months. As he gets things cleaned up, we'll go out and do a final inspection when he's got those done. But he was very amenable to that. Anything else, gents, on Van? So then we went over to the Eric and Elaine Weston site where SLT has been removing some earth over there. They've got the back slope all established. It's been seeded. Didn't grow very well, but it has been established. It's been seeded. They're probably going to reseed. And to my eye, first time being on the site, it looked like it's come along nicely. We talked with the landowner, Eric Weston, for a fair bit of time, and he seemed pretty happy with how nicely they were doing as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where our site visits went. Anybody else have anything to add on any of them?
Just on the western side, I thought that the sloping was nice. I thought that it was nice that they did it while the project's going on. I think it's an exemplary site for me.
Excellent. All right, if you guys have your sheets, if you'd like to pass them over, I'll put them in a packet for Carol. So when she gets back from vacation, she can do the appropriate things with those. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing that's been continued for E.J. Pontiff Cranberries, located at 104 Tremont Street, Assessors Map. Okay. Yeah, so I apologize. That's why I've got them here. So the Mackey discussion, I've had quite a bit of conversation with Carol and with the attorney for Lopes. They provided me with, in fact, truck slips. This has been provided to me. That's all I'm going to say. That's been provided to me. There is no violations that I can see as far as truck traffic goes. We've been there twice. I've been there twice. John Mason's been there more than that. There has been no fines levied. We've been told by Lopes that they did not haul anything during the cease and desist. I have 2 opposing views. One person says they did, one person says they didn't. We weren't there to see it. That's where I'm at with it.
That's where we're pretty much all at.
Okay.
We don't have any other documentation that would say different.
I don't, and I'm sorry for that, ladies. And I know Mrs. Beetling would not be happy to hear that as well.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
So, you were told that there was no truck traffic during the cease and desist.
I was told, yep, I know it is, but I'm gonna give her this little bit of latitude because I've been making her wait patiently for. I've been told that there was no material hauling out. There might have been equipment moving around to get the project moving, but no hauling of soil off the site is what I've been told by them.
Earth
Well-
removal operations include hauling and processing stuff on site, even if trucks aren't leaving the site.
So that, we're talking about trucking now. So.
We're talking
Trucks
about
hauling up.
removal operations.
All right, so
Cease and
I'm
desist.
sorry, we're gonna stop this right here. It is board discussion only, and this was informational in nature. I don't wanna get into an argument over something that I didn't see and my board didn't see. So for that, I do apologize, Ms. Beetling. We did not see it. I was told that it was equipment moving only, and that's where we're gonna leave it. Okay? So, we'll go back to opening. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing that's been continued for the application of E.J. Pontiff Cranberries Incorporated, located at 104 Tremont Street, Assessors Map 123, Lot 13-0, and a possible vote. So I will entertain the
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Gentlemen, the floor is yours for a minute or two if you'd like to go through some of the things you've been doing. And then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Rob D'Ambroso, attorney at law at D'Ambroso Law in Plymouth. I don't think I have a lot to rehash here because we've given sort of a robust presentation as our third appearance before this board. So I'll make just a couple brief remarks, I think primarily directed toward addressing some of the concerns that were raised at the last hearing. And then I'd like to reserve the opportunity to respond to what I would expect is a full-throated discussion from the special interest group that's here. So at the last hearing, the Community Land and Water Coalition's specialist, for lack of a better word, I don't think he's an engineer, Brandon Fanoof, he expressed a concern that one of the ponds that abuts the first proposed bog would be impacted by the development. Again, I didn't have a chance to really respond to that, so I just thought I'd address it here. The new bogs, first of all, are to be constructed at an elevation that's equal to or higher than the elevation of the existing bogs. Therefore, this isn't something that's draining anything or that's lower elevation than what's there already. So I would think, I'm not an engineer, but to me, that would mean no impact to an adjacent body of water. I think more to the point, that flagged wetland area is a man-made pond. I think that might have been touched on by Kevin Flaherty at the last hearing, but that's a man-made pond, and the only reason that it has any water in it, and the only time that it has any water in it, is when water gets pumped up into the pond, which is really a temporary holding basin for irrigation. And it comes out of the pond and irrigates the bog. So, again, just to address kind of the impact of that pond, it's a man-made pond, it's an irrigation pond, and I really don't think it's going to be impacted anyway. There was a comment at the last hearing about the danger to the aquifer of tailwater ponds, and I think Ms. Sheen made a remark about why are we adding a tailwater recovery pond. Just to be clear, that's not contemplated by the project. There is no tailwater recovery pond being constructed here. In fact, we've gone to lengths with this project, and I think we touched on that maybe at the very first presentation, to utilize the existing agricultural infrastructure that's there. So that's why, in part, these bogs are adjacent to the existing bogs. We can make use of irrigation systems, tailwater canals, etc. that are already there. So, again, just thought I would speak to that. Another thing, again, groundwater protection continually comes up, keeps getting raised. I just think it bears mentioning, if I didn't get into the record earlier, that the Water Resource Protection Bylaw is section 4300 of the general bylaw, and section 4320 of that bylaw, which is entitled Applicability, says the provisions of section 4300, which is water protection, shall not apply to land in agricultural use or land being constructed for agricultural use. I think it's important to make that clear for the record. And again, the last item that I'll touch on in relative to groundwater is that Flaherty and Stefani did submit a memo and a supplemental plan recently that was intended to address one of the requirements in the bylaw showing the existing groundwater. So it shows the current groundwater level at the 2 monitoring wells on site. And of course, consistent with the bylaw, we agreed to furnish a report showing post-construction groundwater levels at those 2 wells. We're confident that's not going to change, but certainly happy to provide that. So just wanted to touch on groundwater. Again, this is our 3rd hearing. We've been through conservation. We distributed plans to a myriad of related boards and commissions in town. No complaints verified for the last earth removal project at this site. We verified that with planning and building. We're amenable to all the typical conditions. We kind of ran through that at the last hearing. So again, I won't repeat everything. This is a modest increase to the acreage of bogs that exist on this site, and we're happy to field any questions.
Thank you very much, Rob. For the members of the board, I did receive that plan. It's sitting in my backpack right now. It was just hand delivered here today. I did get an email copy of it the other day. So it's something, if you guys want to see, we can roll it out for the water elevation maps. But I do have a copy of it, so for you guys. Margaret, would you like to have your 10 minutes now, or would you like to have some comments prior to? It's totally up to you.
Well, the 10 minutes were on the agenda for Carver Concerned Citizens. So-
Sure, absolutely. So if the Carver Concerned Citizens would like to go now, or if you'd like to do some commentary first, I'm giving you the option.
So we request that you deny the application of E.J. Pontiff Cranberries at 104 Tremont Street. As you know, this area has previously been heavily mined prior to this present application. In approving the application of the E.J. Pontiff, the ERC will be exposing the aquifer to more contamination. Does anyone on this board know how much sand and gravel has already been removed from this 900-acre site? Is this permit truly necessary in incidental agriculture? Why does E.J. Pontiff Cranberries need more bogs? Has Mr. Pontiff abandoned his career as a builder and is now going to be farming cranberries full-time? Does that make sense when the market for cranberries has plummeted over the past several years? E.J. Pontiff's earth removal permit is an attempt to mine the sand, expose our aquifer to untold amounts of contamination, and make several $1 million selling the sand, all the while paying agricultural tax rates for this quarry, thereby denying the residents of the town of Carver the proper amount of tax revenue. We urge you to deny this application. I'm now going to ask Ms. Sheen to continue for CCC.
Sure. I have a handout among the other things that we already submitted. So, your first duty under the bylaw, as I'm sure you know, is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, not to rubber stamp another earth removal permit for Eric Pontiff. How much sand has he mined off of Ward Street at this point? Is this really cranberry agriculture? Or can you, in fact, tell us how much he has mined out of Carver so far?
I cannot.
Okay, do you understand what the standard is for granting a permit?
I do.
Okay, so why don't you tell me what necessary and incidental agricultural use is?
No, thank you.
Okay, so you are aware then that you have to make a finding that this $15 million sand and gravel mining operation on 17 acres is necessary and incidental to the underlying use of the land as residential agricultural, right? You wouldn't dispute that this land is zoned residential and agricultural.
I would not.
Okay, so then you have to find that this is necessary first, that even though the cranberry industry is in the tank and has been for 20 years, that it is necessary to site another 17 acres of bog on the highest hill that's left on this property. Do you have any evidence that it's necessary to site the bog there and that it's necessary for Mr. Pontiff's so-called cranberry business to continue building bogs when even 18 Makepeace can't make money building bogs? Okay, so you have no evidence that this is necessary, and there's certainly none in the record of what's been submitted. So the second criteria under your bylaw that requires you to find that this is necessary and incidental to preparing the site for an agricultural use is that you meet the Supreme Judicial Court standard that this is an incidental land use. And you need look no further than the town of Plymouth, where the appeals court found 30 years ago that a cranberry bog mining operation to take out 2 years worth of sand and gravel, about a third of what Mr. Pontiff is going to take, was not incidental, but the primary use of the land as a quarry and was prohibited. That is exactly the situation here. And what factors does the court look at in order to determine whether the land is incidental? Well, I'll tell you. And before I do that, I'll give you a metaphor. It's like saying Mary Dormer's house is zoned residential, and she's just gonna build a house in the back of her lot and run a casino there and make millions of dollars and have hundreds of cars coming in and out. And that's just incidental. Just like Mr. Pontiff is saying that his mining operation, that's gonna take at least 5 years, let's face it, with 1 million cubic yards for $15 million and 40,000, 50,000 trucks, that's incidental to his cranberry operation. Okay, so what does the Supreme Judicial Court look at? They look at how much money is made in profit from the cranberries versus the sand. I'm sure Mr. Carver over there can look up the cases and tell you that I'm right. So has Mr. Pontiff told you how much money he's going to make in 5 years from 1,000,005 cubic yards of sand and gravel? That's easily worth $15 million. And then he's going to be farming his cranberries over here. How much is he going to make off cranberries in profits? Clearly zero, break even at best, according to Hillary Sandler at the Cranberry Extension Service. So why don't you tell us whether this is incidental cranberry operations or is it a standalone sand and gravel quarry? Then why don't we look at, and you can pass these around, and this is all documented in our sand report. If anyone wants to go online and look up Sand Wars Southeastern Mass, southeasternma.org, and you can see the real story about the sand and gravel industry here. Our report exposes the money, politics, and corruption behind this silent environmental crisis. Well, let's stick with Mr. Pontiff's site, 104 Tremont Street. Federal Furnace Cranberry, a farm, right? A farm behind that winding back road, abutting up to Miles Standish State Forest. Well, let's see, how many earth removal permits have you given out at this site, Mr. Earth Removal Committee, Mr. Ward, Mr. Harrison? You've been here for 30 years, I'm sure you know. At least 3 million cubic yards. Mining in the aquifer, according to pictures on satellite. And that was none other than Gary Weston's site supervisor and G. Lopes Trucking, who's doing the Mackey site. So over, 2006, 2008, 2015, and 2019, this Earth Removal Committee gave permits to this site right here to mine and strip the entire site. So it's pretty much flattened now, and they mined in the aquifer, and you can see the pumps, the on-site pumps and the sand dewatering right there on Google Earth. Go and look it up. So now a big portion of it is being used for solar. The cranberry bogs were built on top after they probably dumped the stumps back in the hole, as we know they do, right? And so now we're looking for another permit to keep mining on this site and to claim that this is agriculture. I'd like to see the evidence that you have that meets the standard that's going to enable you to find here sitting tonight, as you are required to do, to make a finding, a legal finding, based on the evidence that this is a necessary and incidental land use. So it's staggering how much you have allowed to be strip mined out of this town, and to consider that this, you're going to even consider this to be an agricultural use is obviously a fraud. I'm just going to put it out there. And so maybe that's why the Earth Removal Committee is being investigated by the Office of Inspector General, who investigates waste, fraud, and abuse of public funds. So why don't we ask, where are all the records and the reports of how much sand was mined out of this site? Where are all your inspection reports? I have done a public records request. There is not one record of a site inspection Or where is the annual inspection report paid for by the applicant as required by the bylaw? Where's that? 20 years of mining, at least on this site, and not one inspection report? There was no permit requirement that they pay for the inspector as required under your bylaw. Where's the evidence? How are you going to find that you can make a determination that this is incidental when you have no evidence of how much money is going to be made off of mining 1.5 million cubic yards of sand and gravel? Where's the evidence? Where's the permit application showing all this information? That it's necessary, that it's incidental, that he is going to make more money growing cranberries on this site than he is hauling sand the next 5 years. Where's the evidence?
Thank you very much to the Carver Concerned Citizens for your time. Do we have any other comments from the audience? I've got one in the back.
Don't worry, Eric. Can you hear me from here?
Yes, sir.
Jeff Pontiff, 249 Brownell Avenue, New Bedford, Massachusetts. I'm Eric's father. I've been watching these proceedings from afar by video for as long as they've gone on, and I thought I would just come down and maybe give another perspective on this proceeding. I farmed cranberry bogs in Carver 40 years ago, plus with Eric's mother, who is still farming cranberry bogs in Carver. I don't want to embarrass Eric, but the day after he was born, I was driving a load of dry picked cranberries into Ocean Spray. A great memory in my mind. Driving into town tonight, I drove down 58 and I see Carver 4-H Club welcomes you to town. I think that's an agricultural organization. Carver, as has been pointed out previously, has a bylaw that says this is a right to farm community. Eric has pointed out previously, he has 3 sons and maybe even a daughter now that are out working these same bogs. I remarried. The lineage of my stepchildren is Cape Verdean and indigenous peoples, and they all worked Carver cranberry bogs. I don't know any of you personally, but I know the names of Ward and Harju as tenants of this and pillars of this community for years. This is what this community was built for. And I would add, and I encourage you first, to vote in favor of granting this permit and not be influenced by, let me just put it out there, carpet-bagging attorneys from elsewhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Conklin. Anybody else? Go ahead in
Yes,
front.
hi.
Sorry.
With no disrespect, I don't think that had anything to do with earth removal. I don't understand if we use sand on our cranberry bogs, and I believe in agriculture wholeheartedly, coming from a farming family myself. I believe in agriculture, but I do not believe under the guise of agriculture should you remove $1 million worth of sand and gravel wherever you are, Mr. Pontiff. With all due respect, it's a different animal than farming, okay?
She should be.
Ma'am, in all due
Hold on.
respect,
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay.
No, you may not.
Okay.
I don't want to get into back and forth.
This
And
is
if you can address us, that would be
Okay.
much preferred.
Absolutely, and I'm sorry, but I just don't see the difference. I see a huge difference in agriculture than selling sand and earth that protect our aquifer. That is what the difference is. And yes, we need earth removal permits to do so. I know that you use sand on bogs, and I applaud you for taking care of your bogs. However, I don't think Reed Custom Soil, they're in agriculture. Why are they selling hundreds and hundreds of trucks full of soil and sand that protect our aquifer every day? Why do you need to remove all this sand if you're going to use it on your bogs? It doesn't make sense to me, and it's a detriment in destroying our environment. So I'm sorry, I just don't think it's necessary. That's from an agricultural perspective.
Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
In the back?
Hi, I'm Judy Pratt. I'm a Carverite. I have nothing against agriculture and bogs. I've lived behind bogs in the past. I just don't like what they're doing, what some people are doing to our environment with the digging, the water, the changes. We've had pollution, we've had drying up of wells, and things like that. But I had a few questions I wanted to ask, and only take a minute. The calculations of how much sand that people are taking, are they included in the permit application? That's one question. The site's going to be monitored continually after the permit to make sure that they're keeping within the boundaries. And the other thing is, how are these people going to protect the aquifer? And I'm not talking about cranberry farmers per se. I'm talking about the massive amount of digging and how close they get to the aquifer. It's already been noted and proven that they have gone too close to our aquifer, into it. And so those are my questions that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have one over here on the left.
My name's Annie Hayes. I'm from Wareham. I'm not a carpetbagger. I'm from a similar community. And I strongly understand that there's a sea change in the perspective represented by you, Jeff, and by what we're talking about. And one has to do with private enterprise, and the other has to do with the common good. And overriding all of this is the umbrella of climate change. And we all know that there are aquifers all over the country that are running dry, that have been pumped dry, and that are revealing, as drought comes along, all of the pollutants that have landed in these aquifers as they become more concentrated. I want to show a couple of pictures. One thing, I went to a site visit with Makepeace last week, going up to Honit, and one of the selling points is that the public doesn't have to look at the solar panels. So they're clearly being moved off of the visible path, and who are you kidding? You look on Google Earth and you can see all these sand mines. You can see all these solar panels. This is Carver. This is the site is on another one. This is Wareham, and this is just a tiny piece of our land. There is a sand rush. It's as lucrative as gold. Just research it. And it's globally that way. They're pumping lakes and rivers dry in China. It's a global disaster. And we can't just look at the heritage, which I respect, and we can't just look at private enterprise. We have to look at the common good, which always has to supersede the individual corporation. And that is written in the Massachusetts Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Yes, go ahead.
Patty Cooney, 5 Canterbury Path. So I understand, like everybody here, you know, we're a right to farm community. I'm a farmer. I would love to farm more land, and you know, there's tons of people out there that are in the same boat that would love an opportunity to get some land to be able to farm. So that's, you know, something that is a potential for bog people if they have issues with, you know, making money to be able to pay taxes for their land or whatever. So that's something that I always think about, you know, what's another crop that they could do. But so my question is, you know, if these bogs aren't making enough cranberries and there's not really a market for them anymore, why make more of them? And why can't you guys just redo the bogs that you guys already have? Because I, you know, been learning about permaculture, And when you take the trees away, when you take that topsoil away, there is no more stuff to hold water in. So water, you know, it doesn't come back. The trees suck up the water and redistribute it with rain and stuff like that. And I just don't understand, you know, there is so much money to be made here, but at what cost? You know, what is there you can't replace? Once it's gone, it's gone. And why are you trying to make more bogs if the first ones aren't making enough money for you? Like, why can't you redo the bogs that you guys already have so you don't have to strip out more permaculture, you know, potentially causing more problems for the people that live here, you know? Why can't we redo old bogs, is my question.
Thank you very much.
So what's the answer? Why, is there a reason why?
I can respond to all of these at the end if you'd like me to, but I'll
Yes,
wait.
please.
Just, you know, I'll wait till it all comes up.
Anybody else? Comments? Rob, rebuttal?
Yeah, thanks.
I'll give you a couple minutes.
Yeah, I'll try to be as brief as I can.
Thanks.
So, you know, why don't we renovate existing bogs? That's happening on site, to a large degree, actually. Cranberries aren't profitable. That's a falsehood. It's baseless. You know, impact the aquifer, again, it's all just baseless statements. There's no science, there's no facts, I mean, no study's been presented here. It's just people giving their opinion. And I don't want to say unprofessional opinion, but it's an opinion of lay people to a large degree, I would say. You know, the case law that Ms. Sheen cites, those cases, I've seen them because I see a very similar presentation from her on many occasions, were in a circumstance in which a farmer tried to avail himself of the agricultural exemption of Chapter 48, Section 3. He didn't go through a permitting process. He failed at the permitting stage and then went that other route, and that's the case law that she cites. So it's just a complete red herring. I know money to be made versus in sand versus agriculture. Sand is a one-time return, obviously. You sell it, it's gone. Cranberries are a renewable crop. They grow year after year after year. And I mean, maybe take a look at Ocean Spray's financials. I think they're publicly available. There's quite a bit of money turned over through that organization and the independent growers. I think that I'd like to make a couple general remarks just about sort of the approach that's taken by Community Land and Water Coalition, Save the Pine Barrens, Carver Concerned Citizens, whatever they're calling themselves tonight.
You've got 30 seconds left, my man.
Okay, all right. We see the same presentation every time. There's a wide-ranging campaign to just chill free speech, intimidate boards, threaten them with litigation, and go after anyone who's trying to do any project that entails something they don't like. It's a policy objection. That's the problem here. They don't like earth removal, they don't like agriculture in many respects, they don't like solar. The opportunity to change that was at town meeting. It failed. It fell flat on its face. It was a disaster. So again, that's the objection. If you don't like the framework and you don't like the system, you could try to change it, and it's been attempted. But we're within the framework. We're operating within the framework. We've done everything the right way. We've got the science. We spent the time, and we've got a track record. We've got a farmer, third generation, hundreds of acres under agriculture. You know, that's what he does.
Thank you, Rob.
Excuse me, can I just say one more thing?
One quick one.
Okay, if you just look into the USDA, there's so much documentation, and it's not a falsehood or a fallacy. It is actual facts how sand filters aquifers. It is a true and factual statement that we are talking about. So please don't discredit how
A lot of
the
sand
US
left if this sand comes out. Just to
the
be clear.
US
We're not going down to
the
All right,
federal.
so let's not do this. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you all now.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Thank you. I'm done taking comments at this point. What's the board's pleasure? I think we've
Do you
heard.
need us to make a motion here?
I do.
And
Yeah.
then any discussion that we might have or explanation, we make it after we make the motion?
If we make a motion and get a second, we'll open it for board discussion only. We've heard from the audience. Is that appropriate that I can do that? I don't have to have any more public commentary after we're in, go through a first and a second?
That's correct. In fact, I would suggest that you start your deliberations before
Before,
a motion is made, so that we can kind of sort of get an idea of what the consensus is and put the motion into a proper format.
so this is my first one, so that's why I'm looking over here, so, I think, I'm looking for advice here.
Well, I would like to explain where I'm coming from. I've lived in Carver for 60 years. I've been working on cranberry bogs and owned some cranberry bogs through those whole 60 years. We are at a point in my own case where my son is rebuilding a piece of our bog because we're having difficulty making a profit with the old early blacks and hows, which when you compare them to the newer varieties, 120, 130 barrels per the acre compared to 400 barrels per the acre, that's the difference. It's producing more and more income. Now, the fact is that we've been using sand for all these years. And I know that now the cost of sand is huge. People have talked about that. And so as I'm building, I hope, an acre and a quarter, my son has it now, just an acre and a quarter, small piece, rebuilding it. But when you put a layer of black material that's soil and absorbs nutrients and such, and then you put 8 inches of sand on it in order for these newer varieties to thrive, it's a huge amount of sand and it's a big expense. And so constructing a new piece of bog or renovating a new piece of bog is a lot of money. My son said this project that he's doing, acre and a quarter, is gonna run around $60,000 to rebuild it. It's gonna take quite a long time for that to repay. Obviously, I ain't gonna be here, but my son and my grandson.
I'm sorry, everybody was
My
respectful
son
to you guys.
And my grandson will be coming along and growing cranberries. So I'm looking at our community, and I served on the Board of Selectmen for 12 years. I've served on the Finance Committee. I've served on a whole bunch of committees in town, and I've worked with a lot of folks. And I see a lot of our community people that really appreciate the open space that comes along with what we cranberry growers are doing. In my case, I've handed it over to my son. I had 11 acres of cranberry bog and 50 acres of land. So there's land and wetlands that are connected to the bogs that may not be there in other circumstances. I saw I'm thinking of this farm, and I know I don't really like being ridiculed about the use of the word farm. I can't go back and forth with a lawyer, but I consider our agriculture in our town as part of our farming community and farming. Now, this Pontiff Farm, and by the way, I remember working on Mr. Pontiff's mother's bog, so he's been working in the cranberry industry a long time. He's not just a contractor. But back to that piece of property, that close to 1,000 acres. There was a plan submitted to the planning board some couple of years ago for housing for that land. Many hundreds of houses. And I'm thinking in terms of my community, and I worry about my neighbors and the kids and the streets and trucking, but there's got to be a balance. We've had cranberries here all these years. Cranberries are doing well, okay. So in this case of this farm, if this farm were not to be, over a period of time, agriculture and cranberries, it's gonna become houses. And I love kids and houses. I was the chairman also of the elementary school building committee. So I know how much it would cost us if we're gonna put in a couple of hundred houses over the next 5 or 6 years. If we turn a project like this down, they're not threatening us. They may have to be selling some house lots to make their mortgage. But anyway, I overall look at this and I feel that this is the best thing for us to do and to continue with cranberries and agriculture in our town.
I'd like to just follow up with what you're saying, Dick, as far as the housing. I see more evidence of pollution to our aquifer with our current septic systems. If you look down at the Cape and these things that are going on, I see no evidence in my research or understanding of how cranberry bogs are affecting our aquifer. I do not.
Earth removal, not cranberry.
Again, please hold your comments. We were very respectful to you guys.
All of
as
these
well.
existing projects are for the expansion of cranberry bogs that I've seen in front of me. Again, once it's a cranberry bog, it's not gonna be a house, it's not gonna be a septic system. It's good for the cranberry industry, it's good for this town, and in every one of these, again, permits that I see, the absolute opportunity or option for these folks is to turn these into housing developments. And I don't think it's right for our town.
Nobody answered my question about.
I'm sorry, we're done with
But no,
public comment.
He said he was gonna answer my question about why they can't just redo old bogs.
He did answer it.
He did. Thank you. So further discussion from the board.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the DJ Pontiff.
So approve the permit as presented? As presented. Do we have to talk about truckloads and stuff like that in the motion, or is that after the fact?
Well, right, so.
I'm just trying to get procedure correct here.
So what you're gonna need to do is, so you can, your options are, you can vote to approve the permit, you can vote to deny the permit, or you can vote to approve the permit with conditions. If you're going to go with that third option, we're going to need to list the conditions in the motion. So, what we can do is, if you're not prepared to do that tonight, we can, continue this to the next meeting, and, draft a proposed decision for you to vote on when you come back.
Or we can say it all tonight if we so choose.
Or you could say it all tonight if you so choose, and we will attempt to get that down as best we can.
Perfect.
You mean like, I'm concerned with a 5.5 day or 6 day permit.
Yep, that would be in there if you wanted to make it in the
Yeah,
motion.
Well, are there any other, I haven't looked at all the things that we usually address.
So the amount of truck trips,
neighbors and-
the hours of operation, and direction of travel from the site.
Wasn't that all in?
Those are the three biggies that if we're gonna make a motion and it's going to approve, that we have those all spelled out tonight. And we can go from there.
Was that not spelled out in the application, or was that for the?
So what we've heard from the applicant is all the customary stuff. The customary amount of truck trips for that site has been 70 truck trips per day. The hours have been 7 to 5, 6 days a week has been customary on that site. And the travel would be left or right onto Federal Furnace Road from the departure, either towards Carver or towards Plymouth.
I think we got a little bit of an extenuating circumstance because we got a permit from the other side. There's 25 truckloads a day.
At the Edgewood site.
Yes,
That was what they requested.
yes, well, if that's ongoing, and we're looking at 70 truckloads a day from this site right
Yes, sir.
away, You're looking at almost 100 load, well, 75?
And that's average.
75 loads per day. No,
It'd
70
be
plus
95,
25.
it'd be
Almost
95,
100.
yep,
Um,
on that road. Which has
Yeah.
which had been happening in an overlapping scenario with the previous permit and the Edgewood permit at the same time.
Well, I did
With no
talk
instance.
briefly to a neighbor, and the neighbor was a little concerned with that.
Okay,
And I just wondered if that's something we should be addressing or readdressing.
sure.
But I hate to hold the whole permit up because we got one situation that we haven't completely addressed. Anybody else got a?
Well, to the points, I mean, I was looking at the Makepeace one,
Yep.
actually, where they actually laid out dust mitigation.
Yep.
And do you guys have a plan like that? I didn't see it in an application. that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah, there's a,
With dust mitigation, number of trucks you want, has that been laid out?
well, I think at the last hearing.
I just can't
Yeah,
find it.
Yeah, I don't think we submitted it in writing. The last hearing I ran through what we'd be happy to accept.
Right.
I'm happy to run through it again if you'd like.
Absolutely.
You just write your own permit.
No, it's not. Thank you.
So, we've got the start of a motion here.
Yeah, I think I want to.
Mr. Harrison?
I would like to see that the truck traffic be reduced from 70 to 50, because that's the most we have done and improved in the past.
Okay.
So 50 trucks in and 50 out.
Yep.
Per day. And that way we would minimize the amount of traffic on the roads and the impact of the trucks going by people's houses.
Thank you.
I'm happy to go through that. Second.
Hours of operation, what do you get, what's the pleasure?
That I don't have an opinion.
As long as it doesn't start with backup lines before 7 o'clock in the morning.
So, 7 to 5, sound appropriate? Is that okay?
7
That
to 5.
sounds, we could
6,
accept
6.
that.
5 days or 6?
5.5.
There you go. So 7 to 12 on a Saturday?
That's early on a Saturday.
Actually, we could start at 8 o'clock on a Saturday
Okay.
and go to 12 or 1.
Go to 1?
That'd be fine.
So we'll do 5 hours, 8 to 1 on Saturday?
It's not as early as, all right.
Okay.
I can-
So I think we've got the framework of a motion. Roger, would you like to
May I
make?
offer a point of information, Mr. Chairman, just
Sure.
10 seconds, just
Yep.
to Mr. Harrison's point, you said you've never done more than 50. Actually, the 2008 federal furnace permit was 70 a day, and we did check with staff and, deliberately to see if there's any issue there, and they reported no complaints. So it's your motion, your decision, but just point of information.
Yep.
All right, so we need a motion here.
Yep.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
through you,
Oh.
a question I wanted to see if the board needs to discuss. My understanding is that this project is also subject to regulation by the Conservation Commission.
That is correct.
And the DEP. And are there any concerns on your part that as a result of that process, this project will look different than it does now?
So I will in fact speak to that point, which is what I've told the applicant the last time why I didn't do this then, is because there was that, in fact, appeal with DEP through the Concom. In talking with the conservation agent and talking with the applicant, what I believe will happen, and I'm here, hopefully you'll clarify, if in fact DEP comes back with a superseding order of conditions, they'll have to come back in front of us to amend if it changes enough.
And that's
Am I
why
correct there?
I suspected, and if that is the case, I would suggest making that a condition of
Okay.
the permit as
Okay.
well.
What was the condition?
The condition would be that they would come back in front of the earth removal committee if in fact DEP changed the order of conditions for the Conservation Commission. Close?
All right, let's try this.
I hope you wrote it down so you can give it to Carol.
I'm gonna try and write the motion. Do I need to change the motion then, or to modify?
We never got it seconded, so.
So it never got seconded.
I'll
No.
second the motion.
Would you like to amend the
And I would
motion?
like to amend it with verbiage to, how are we gonna do that?
So Roger will do that as the person that made that motion.
Right, so we're talking about truck traffic Monday through Friday, 7 to 5, Saturday, 8 to 1. We're talking about
7 to 5, right?
7 to 5, right. Saturday, 8 to 1.
8 to 1.
I'm in agreement with the 50 trucks per day.
Is that, through you, Mr. Chair?
Yep.
50 in, 50 out?
50 loaded trucks. Yep.
And I'd like to see a dust mitigation plan of some sort.
There is,
Sheet
I
6
think,
has the phasing plan with the
It's in there.
mitigation on it.
in the description, yes, that you have.
Yep.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I don't have my...
So we have a motion to, do we have a second on Roger's motion?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
All right, so I'll read what I have written down to make sure it's okay with you guys. Is the motion to approve the project as presented with the truck trips to be no more than 50 trips per day, Monday through Friday, 7 to 5, Saturday, 8 to 1, with a dust mitigation plan followed that's in the plan that's drawn.
Mhm.
And with a conditional approval based on DEP's finding of the appeal.
That's how I have it.
Sounds
Any other?
correct.
Any further discussion on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Now I would like to do a roll call just so we are very clear. Mr. Harrison, I'll start with you.
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
Mr. Shores?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Okay, gentlemen, I appreciate your time and your patience with us.
Thank you very much, guys.
Do I need a motion to close this public hearing now?
Yes.
I'll
I
entertain
will make a motion that we close the public
I
hearing.
will
on-
second that.
Good luck.
That permit will have to get filled out and we will have to sign it
That's correct.
before Mr. Pontiff
That's correct.
starts it. Anything that goes up.
Right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
No, we do not. All right, so that takes care of the Pontiff public hearing. We've got that one closed at 8:03. All right, so I'd like to open the public hearing that has been continued for the application of AD Makepeace and Cranberry Company LLC, located off Federal Road, assesses map 131, lot 2-4. And again, Mr. Madden, the floor is yours, and Mr. McVeigh, if you guys would like to give us another synopsis of what you've got going on.
Yeah, briefly, thank you. Mike McVeigh, 80 Makepeace attorney, 158 Tyler Road. We're here on behalf of ADM Cranberry Company.
We need a motion to open this up, don't we?
Yes.
We have a motion?
Motion to open
Roger?
the 80 Makepeace.
Here, I second.
Mike
Could I
second?
also ask them to slide it down?
Yep. One second. Okay. We're gonna open the meeting at 8:05. And if everybody in the audience can just keep their chatter to a dull roar, that'd be great. Mr. Madden and Mr. McVeigh?
Yep, just briefly, Mike McVeigh, I'm here with Bill Madden from GAF. We were here before the board on January 31, where this meeting was continued. I think we had a great site visit on February 10. A couple of the issues that came up there were phasing and side sloping. In the interim, well, several things have happened we'll get to later, I'm sure, but Bill Madden's team sent along, I think, supplementary information relative to some Massachusetts Historical Commission, best management practices, and the phasing that was requested. So I'll hand it off to Mr. Madden.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the 80 Makepeace Company and the earth removal project that we have before you tonight. As y'all recall, we did conduct that site inspection, I think it was on February 1st. Thank you all very much for coming out there, and very complimentary on the way the work was taking place. It was a well-maintained site, well-operated, very neat, orderly, and what have you. I don't think there was anything that would represent any issue with any earth removal committee in any town that I currently work in. So we were very pleased to see the board feel the same way. But in any event, it's about a 22-acre cranberry bog project. We're looking to do it in 3 groups of roughly 8 acres or 16 acres of block, except down here, proposed bog 3 is about 5.5 acres. And then there's some additional clearing that was proposed on the south side of the site. You might recall when we first initiated the site inspection, we drove down that side of the site, the south side. I explained to you the process. I explained to you the reasons why we were proposing to cut and remove material from that portion of the site. Based on discussion we had in the field, I provided you with best management practices from the UMass Cranberry Station. You know, we talk about air circulation, we talk about pest control, we talk about shading. So the documentation that I provided you from the Cranberry Experiment Station really supported the position that we adopted when we chose to present that portion of the earth removal to the Earth Removal Committee. In a similar fashion, I did the same thing with the bog construction. You might note that I also provided you with supplemental information on cranberry bog construction methodology. It's all the cranberry bog methodology that's prepared by the UMass Cranberry Experiment Station. All the best management practices that are necessary for new bog construction are implemented in this project. You know, I think that simply speaks for itself when one goes through that documentation. It's all prepared by scientists. It's backup information. It's factual information. It's not hearsay information. It's information that was prepared by scientists and engineers and other professionals engaged in the cranberry industry. So that's what we presented, along with a few other things. There was some discussion at one point in time about rare and endangered species. So along with the application, I put in the section from the rare and endangered species mapping that indicates that there's no rare and endangered species on the site that we are contemplating the earth removal. I also provided a letter from the Mass Historical Commission. There was a historic survey that was done on site, an archaeological survey that was done by PALS. They provided a final letter that said the finds that were observed on the site were not significant, and the nature of them did not warrant any further discussion. So that information was provided to you as well. Also provided a map of the groundwater contours that comes from this document, one of these documents, USGS Geohydrology, Hydrogeology of the Plymouth, Carver, Kingston, Duxbury Aquifer, which is all part of the sole source aquifer, which, by the way, is about 200 square miles in area and holds 5 billion gallons of water. So you can just see by the ratio of those numbers. I mean, I said billion with a B. We're talking about removing 1.1 million yards out of that site. We're going to have a 2.9 acre pond that's in there. It's really a minor, it's a minor feature in the aquifer as a whole. You know, when you consider that domestic drinking water wells projected for the year 2030 are going to be about 13 million gallons a year in predominantly Plymouth, Carver, and Duxbury and Kingston. Just as a side note, as part of that 13 million that will be pumped out by 2030, about half of that is reintroduced, that wastewater is reintroduced back into the aquifer. So I think that when people talk about pollution of the aquifer, you know, when you look at, you know, that order of magnitude of gallons per day in very dense areas of populated areas, like where the home developments are, that could really lead to some problems with respect to groundwater pollution. So perhaps some effort should be placed on evaluating that wastewater discharge and how that wastewater discharges the aquifer as well. But that's just a side note. So in any event, that's what we're showing for the project. We show our slopes, as you saw them on the site. At the north site, we were in there 2.5 to 1, I think is what we were. Prior permit allowed us to do some areas at 2.5 to 1, other areas at 3 to 1, and that's what we have indicated is predominantly a 2.5 to 1 stabilized slope across that site as the project is completed. We are constructing the cranberry bogs, as you saw out there, the elevations, subgrade elevation that we're going to be building the cross-section of the bog up from was pretty much in place up here for about 16 acres thereabout, and that was pretty much what the field observations revealed at that location. But in any event, that's what we did. I presented a small phasing plan. The phasing plan, I just developed it on areas that we were going to work in first. We were going to work in the north first, do halfway down this reservoir as part of that first phase. Second phase would be sections 2, the other half of the reservoir. The third phase would be these bogs. And, I couldn't really give much more information other than the activity areas that we wish to work in first, because we hadn't determined the truck trips. So, we somewhat expect that the truck trips would be similar to what had been previously authorized on this site, and I want to say it was 40 or 50 per day, something along those lines. So I provided that just for the convenience of the board to let them know that we do want to start at the north, want to progress to the south, and work in that particular manner. So that's really what we have with the with the project as a whole, and happy to entertain any questions you might have.
From the board? Anything?
You want comments on?
Sure, if you'd like.
Generally, I think that they do good work. I mean, I compare it with projects that we've seen in the past, and generally Makepeace Company does a good job on their work. And as far as this project and being something that I would support, it's again, it's an addition to this farm, this Wonkeko farm that we looked at overall, and it strikes me to be a good addition to that acreage on Wonkeko. Again, my thoughts on our town and agriculture, I know I've been, like I said, farming in our own town right across the street for 60 years, and I have never had a problem with any contamination going on with my wells, and I'm operating pretty close to my wells. We don't have sand on our property, the kind that you could use on cranberry bogs anymore, so I will have to buy sand on any renovation work that we are going to do, and that's the biggest expense on our addition on our renovations. But as far as our overall town and what we need and what we want for open space and wetlands and such, I balance some of the things that we're worrying about, but I'm also looking at our overall economy and our overall environment, and so I'm supportive of this project.
Any questions for Mr. Madden or Mr. McVeigh while they're up there?
One quick thing, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just briefly, and thanks for reminding me, Mr. Ward. I think on the site visit, we had talked about alternative uses, or years ago, what we had considered, Makepeace had considered all 4 mains along Federal Road. Decided to forego that and instead to use this footprint, and this project takes it to its final design, use the entire footprint to modernize, create modern bogs, modern rectangular bogs that produce somewhere over 100% more yield than these larger naturally contoured bogs right over here. That's it.
Thank you.
And if I just might add, with the house lots that once existed along portion on Cranberry Road and Federal Road, I want to say order of magnitude might have been, I want to say 26 or thereabouts house lots is what was proposed there in 2008 when the first earth removal permit was presented there. So we were going to have the house lots up front, Cranberry Bog out back. The company, recognizing their cranberry growers, they opted not to do the residential uses at that location and continue on with a little bit of an expanded cranberry project. So that's how we evolved into the one we have today.
Anything from the board?
On the site now, how many trucks do you have on a trip basis in and out? Do you have any rough idea?
I think it's 40, but
It's 50, consistently 50.
Thank you.
You mean 250?
No, I mean 50.
So let's
50 on that
Well, you
not,
should know, right? You've been reading the truck logs from Makepeace, right?
so let's not do that. The fact of the matter is, we've got
So we're
a,
not going to be adding any additional trucks to the road?
Sir.
no, we can operate under that, that'll work just fine for the project.
can you hold it down, please? Thank you. Okay. Carver Concerned Citizens, we'll give you the 10. Thank you.
I just want to address a couple of things that Mr. Madden said. Duxbury is not part of the Plymouth Carver Sole Source Aquifer. So you're wrong there.
I was referring to that document, ma'am.
Okay, but it's not part of the
That's wrong,
aquifer.
too.
Okay. And you have been regurgitating the same plans at every single meeting for every single project that you represent. And it's shameful.
Can you
It really
please
is.
just address us and not
Sorry.
them, please? Thank you.
And with all due respect, Mr. Ward, pulling out millions of cubic yards of sand, it's not to sand a bog, it's mining. And it is impacting the aquifer. You mine in the aquifer, sand is finite, it's going to disappear. And then what are we gonna do? Then you definitely won't have sand for the bogs. But I'm going to ask you to deny this permit. And also the first permit was...
Let's keep to this permit if you would, please.
I am. But this isn't the first...
This is her speech.
Right.
I can turn this public hearing to this project.
No, you cannot.
Yes, he can.
He cannot.
So let's just not do this.
So I'm going to
You're cutting
continue.
into your own time.
Okay, so we request that you deny the earth removal application for AD Makepeace for the property located at 46 Federal Road. As you know, the original permit application for this site was submitted in 2003, not 2008. AD Makepeace is not going to build bogs at this site, nor were they ever going to. It is the duty of this board to protect the health, safety, and well-being of the residents of Carver. Our earth removal bylaw does not give this board the authority to grant never-ending permits for sand and gravel removal. Allowing AD Makepeace to continue to pillage our natural resources does not satisfy that duty. To date, millions of cubic yards of sand and gravel have been mined by AD Makepeace from Federal Road, without the completion of bogs or reservoirs that necessitated the removal of sand. We live on a sole source aquifer, and there is not another source of water available to the residents of the towns that share the aquifer. What happens when our aquifer becomes so contaminated that no one can use their wells for drinking, cooking, bathing, or cleaning? Who will this board turn to for remediation? Do you think that AD Makepeace will step in and clean up the aquifer? I doubt it. They've obtained these permits under the guise of agricultural while publicly admitting that they are commercially selling sand and gravel. The massive quarry that AD Makepeace has maintained for the past 2 decades on Federal Road has had an adverse impact on our drinking water, the rare pine barrens, and endangered species. Is it really necessary to remove more trees for the fake bogs they're building? Please explain to me how the shading of the trees that have stood for thousands of years compares to the man-made shading of the solar panels over the bogs that they have designated as dual use. Is this another of Makepeace's lies? We have been to several meetings and beg you to stop this madness. I have heard at every meeting that you are a volunteer board. This is true, but it is your choice to volunteer, and it is not excuse for not doing your job that you have volunteered for. If there's any reason that you are unable to perform your duties and protect the residents of this community, you must step down. We too are volunteers. Each of us spent hundreds of hours reviewing these applications, providing you with information, most of the time from experts, not that they're read, and reminding you of your duties, all to no avail. We have been ridiculed and libelous statements have been made about us on social media. All, it is my belief, that stems from this committee. You seem to be more interested in issuing permits for your employers and friends than actually enforcing state and local laws meant to protect us. If you refuse to enforce our local and state laws, then enforce the laws that protect us under the Safe Drinking Water Act, or Section 1983. I know of no resident in this town, or the 6 other towns that we share the aquifer with, that has agreed to their right to bodily integrity being violated by polluted water for these predatory companies that continually come before you for earth removal permits so they can make money on our natural filter, the sand and gravel. You should take the time to find legal representation that will explain to you just how serious a violation this is to our civil rights. Clearly, our present town council seem not to understand the concept or the implication it will have on each of you individually. After the last meeting, a video was posted of me calling me a liar when I stated that approximately 70% of the town's water is contaminated. A quick search on the DEP website and viewing of the town's boards and committee meetings will back up my statements. In North Carver, the North Carver landfill has since the 1980s been leaching contamination into the private wells of the residents along Plymouth Street and is currently in phase 4 of that cleanup. Most recently, PFAS 6, this is the 6th regulated PFAS in Massachusetts. Who knows how many more unregulated PFAS have been found? And to be clear, just because Massachusetts doesn't regulate them does not mean that they're not dangerous. Has been found above the state limit at the landfill and the surrounding private wells. Every time it is found, the normal practice is to go out 1,000 feet and test again. 9 acres of PFAS was recently capped but not lined at the Route 44 Green Business Park site. It has been found at the Ravensburg dump, the Dunkin' Donuts in the center of Carver, the fire station in the center of Carver, Berry Guys, and the dump in South Carver owned by Makepeace. Since the DEP does not regulate private wells and Carver's own source of public water, the North Carver Water District, is defunct, unless the private wells are tested, there is no way to know how much the aquifer has been contaminated. I think I was being generous with 70%. I haven't even touched on the contamination that is leaching into the groundwater from the 20 large ground-mounted solar panels. The effects of PFAS exposure is still in its infancy. However, there are several known adverse effects to exposure. Some are high cholesterol, low birth weight, developmental delays, interference with vaccines, breast cancer, esophageal cancer, kidney cancer, liver cancer, osteoarthritis, and testicular cancer. This is what we are subjecting our family, friends, and neighbors to. If you guys aren't going to do it for your families and friends, I mean, this is ridiculous. Honestly, it's ridiculous. You sat on the board for the aquifer. You were part of that. And in everything I'm reading, it says, protect the water, protect the water, protect the water. No one is protecting the water. It's time. Deny this permit. Go ahead.
3 minutes.
I'd like to use the.
That's his own personal easel, so you can ask Mr. Madden.
I'll hold it for you.
Okay, all right. Just thought I'd put up, because the
You know,
video's
we're
even
even
awesome. Let's see. So, as Mary said, Makepeace has been mining at this site for 20 years now, and the original purpose for the mining was to build cranberry bogs, and Mr. Kane stood in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals 2 years ago and said the bogs were under construction. Well, do we see any bogs out there today? That same exact plan was recycled 3 times. That violates the professional standards of engineering, and you have to find under the bylaw that the engineering plans meet professional standards. These do not. You can't just keep recycling the same project. So instead of building a cranberry bog over the last 20 years, Makepeace has taken out 4 million cubic yards of sand. How much would you say, Mr. Ward? You even yourself just admitted today that at this site, the Wonkinko Bog site, the largest cranberry bog in the world, where there's 500 acres of bogs, there's no new bogs there, but they've mined this entire site out, 50 acres. This was all priority habitat. There's an ongoing commercial sand and gravel processing facility there, and there's Reed Custom Soils right next door that is the largest, alleged to be the largest aggregate mining and distribution center on the East Coast. And we all see the trucks going up and down Federal Road. You can go on their website and they brag about being located in the heart of their endless supply of sand. So are we talking about cranberry agriculture here? Is that what it looks like after 20 years? You said you worked on the bogs and you were out there this week and there's still no bogs. Let's talk about the rest of the scene out on Federal Road. Last couple of years, your permits, Hammond Street and Federal Road, 19 acres mined in the aquifer. Look at what the water looks like in our aquifer. This is mining and dredging in the aquifer. That was all upland forest. 59 Federal Road, 2020. In a closed-door session during COVID, you gave Makepeace a permit for 4 million cubic yards worth about $36 million. 85 acres, totally stripped as of today. You can go out and see it.
No, don't. You're not welcome on our property.
Let's stop. You've got 20 seconds left.
All right, so Makepeace, this is what 46 Federal Road used to look like. And in the last 20 years, Makepeace on this site, 2 square miles right on Federal Road, they have mined enough sand and gravel to fill Gillette Stadium 3/4 of a mile high. So how much of that went on to the bogs?
Thank you
Why don't we have
very
mountains?
much for your time.
I still have my 2 minutes as a public citizen.
So you can sit down and we'll start again. Do I have any comments from the audience?
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning the word aquifer. I think it's the first time I've heard a proponent use it. And, I mean, I think everybody here knows what a critical conversation this is. And I understand you're talking about what you know and the history of the past and tradition, but we're in a whole new ballgame. I hate to use sports conversation at all, it's not a game. We're in a whole new world. Just last month, nanoparticles are on the sea, not microparticles that have been studied in the water, but nanoparticles. And when you have a little plastic bottle of water, they used to think there was something like 334 particles, microparticles. There are 334,000 nanoparticles. They're just like tiny little bits of plastic that are constantly being shed. The forest is the best filter possible on Earth. That's why we have pure water. And I want you to see the, what do we call it? Piece by piece. Our world, our towns, this is just little bits of Wareham and Carver. And they're being stripped of the best infrastructure that's possible. And our infrastructure is more and more and more and more costly because we are tearing down the green infrastructure of the natural world.
Thank you very much. Do I have any other comments?
I just have to get off the floor.
Oh, hold on, Patty was first, so, Ms. Cooney, go ahead.
Patty Cooney, 5 Kingsbury Path. So, you know, I hear everybody up here saying, well, you know, there's no science behind it, there's no science behind it. There hasn't been a chance to have science behind it, because like you said, you know, how many years ago we didn't take out this much? And look at the spots where we did. Look at down by the dump. Look at down by the green part. Do we not see what's going on? If we continue to do things to the earth, taking out soil, taking down trees, the pollution is going to move from those areas, not have any type of filter to clean it. And then, like they said, who's gonna pay for it? When we have no water left, are you guys all gonna foot the bill to get a water treatment facility in town? Because I sure know I don't have any more money to do it. Maybe when you guys sell off the $30 million worth of sand, you're gonna end up losing half that profit because the town's not gonna have any water. You know, what are we gonna do? And like they said, this is the time to stand up and stop it. You know, And even if it's just for a little bit of time, so then we can test and we can learn what's going on. Because, like she said, the DEP, they're realizing that, holy crap, we have a huge issue with our clean water. Look at Middleborough. Middleborough that feeds North Carver, their water is contaminated too. So what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna get water from? You can't, like Rockland's messed up. There's places all around us that cannot use their water. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna keep on mining it? Keep on taking it out and taking it out? We didn't do this 20 years ago, so you don't know what it's caused. You know, this is a huge influx because, like people have said, the cranberry value's gone down. So now they're looking for other ways, which I totally understand. You need to make money off your land, but at what expense?
I've checked out the place there with my beautiful wife behind me, who will correct me for anything I say wrong. So, I do just have a few comments, questions, I don't know. Mr. Ward, you made a comment, right? You stood in our driveway, you know, beautiful bogs across the street, huge, expansive piece of property. Great, awesome, bogs, okay, cool. I think our concern as a resident and a butter is not the bogs. It's that it's been under construction since, basically since we've lived there. You know, the original projects, at least that we date back to, it was, hey, this is gonna be a 3-year project, there's gonna be bogs. And then it went back to committee. It's gonna be 2 more years, we're gonna have bogs. And then 3 more years, we're gonna have bogs. So here we are, I don't know, 12 years by roughly my record, and there's still no bogs. So are we gonna finish this? It'd be great if we could finish it, is kind of our concern. So the guys from Makepeace have been very friendly in a weird way. I don't know the right term, but they've now hear me out. They've worked with us, and they worked with us a long time ago. Jim Kane came to our house. A long time ago, he wanted to know, oh, what are your concerns? What's going on? So we sat down with him. One of the, I call it crucial kind of decisions that they made was to maintain that large, like, sand pile berm, the dirt berm that kind of runs north to south on the, what would be the west side of the project. So that's been great for us because it's created a sound barrier, so we don't really hear what's going on. We do sometimes, but they've started to dig that away, and we were told that that would disappear towards the end of the project, that they phased the project so we could retain that like sound protection. And then
I'm sorry, sir, you're gonna creep up on your 2 minutes.
This is unreal. I don't come to any meeting. They're gonna get 10 minutes to sit here and tell the same story that they've told on every other project, and I'm an actual abutter and I can't talk? You guys are, this is absurd.
Right.
Like seriously, I have some serious comments. I'm being respectful.
I understand.
Come on.
So if somebody else, if we've got a comment from somebody else, and then you can come back, I'll come back to you.
They've maintained this berm, which has been very helpful. But if that's gonna start going away, which it is, because I've seen it, they're already working on it. We're gonna hear sounds now. We hear, it's not just the beep, beep, beep that we hear from the trucks.
I am so sorry, and I know it feels disrespectful. I know it does, and I.
You guys are, this is
I do
why,
apologize.
this is why these meetings are like this. This is why there's a police officer in the hall.
I apologize.
You
for
won't
this.
let, now I can't talk, and I actually live there.
I
live
understand and I
this.
feel your pain.
That's
I will
absurd.
give my 2 minutes to him right now and let him continue as me. Thank you.
So there you go. That's a good workaround.
There you go.
No, it's sad, because I'm not even complaining. I'm
And no,
being
and believe me, I
respectful.
get it, and I apologize, but rules, I've got
that's
rules set up for
How can
everybody.
you limit public comment? It's just,
It's a public hearing. What's it called?
so, if we're gonna start getting rid of that sand pile, the berm that's there, then are we gonna actually finish the project? Because that's been a huge help. So that's kind of my question, this big question I have. Number 2, we are curious about hours of operation. I'm not sure what they are now, what they're gonna be. They start before 7. We don't usually have an issue with it. We don't always hear it. You know, it's winter time, the windows are closed right now, we don't hear it. But sometimes we do hear it when the windows are open because it's nice out. They're beep, 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 okay? The sound travels. We're not that close, but there's nothing in between. we've reached out in the past, I know my wife has, to, I think, Jim Kane directly, and a beep, beep, beep turned into a white noise beeper the next day. So we did ask, I think it was in some of the original conditions of previous permits to use white noise beepers. We found that to be a lot less intrusive to the ear. So if we could maybe keep that as part of the condition, it's really helpful as a neighbor. I also have a little bit of a concern, it may not be completely related to this project, but the overall condition of Federal Road is really kind of deteriorating over time. A lot of trucks going up and down that road, and not just from the Reed Soil or these projects, the other projects that are all on that road. But you should really take a ride down Federal Road, especially after a rainstorm. It's pretty bad, and you can see where the sand's washing into the road from different driveways. They're tracking a lot of sand out in the Federal Road from their main entrance. It really something that should probably be looked at. I know we get a lot of money, the town does, to put back into roads. Maybe we can put a little more money into fixing up Federal Road. A little bit of a concern there. And that's probably all I do request, if you don't mind, and you probably do mind, but if you could continue this hearing to your next meeting, as we haven't looked at any of these. This is our first time. So just like the last meeting that was supposed to have a public hearing and didn't because you didn't have the information, well, we didn't have the information now until tonight. So if you could continue this hearing to the next meeting so that we may have time to review it and then possibly comment at the next meeting, I'd appreciate that also. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. So do I have any other comments from the board, from the audience? Mr. Bogart has used up 2 of your opportunities. Meg, you wanted to continue?
Yep, and can I use your 2 minutes, Patsy?
Yes. You can use mine too.
You can use. Again, just to reiterate, 2 square miles of sand and gravel mining, about 150 acres, right on Federal Road, and that's just a fraction of what Makepeace has been doing. This all relates to protecting the 7 towns in the sole source aquifer, and here's information if people would like to read about the total amount of sand and gravel that Makepeace has hauled out of this region. I'll read this back here. On this last page, you'll see that Makepeace is responsible for about 23 million cubic yards of sand and gravel in the region. We're not just talking about this little square here that was supposed to be a cranberry bog 20 years ago. So is he leaving? And
He had to use the restroom.
All right,
so I'm
so
sorry
then
for that.
Well, we'll have to wait till he comes back, because if he doesn't attend the hearing, then he can't vote, right? So we'll wait till he comes back.
Sure, you can wait.
It's not coming out in my 2 minutes.
You are reading my mind, I'll tell you that.
Great minds think alike.
I would like to say something.
There you go.
I don't care if
So
he's
okay, so you're taking your 2 minutes back from Ms. Sheehan?
No.
Thank you, though, I appreciate that.
I just want to tell you something. Excuse me.
Hold on, address us, not him,
Sorry,
please.
I want to tell him something.
You can tell it through us.
I will.
Thank you.
Middleborough has bad water now, PFAS in it. So now the Carver, North Carver cannot drink their water because they were getting their water from Middleborough. Okay, now this PFAS that was just found in Carver is leaching into Plimpton. All the towns around here are having major water issues. I don't know if you live here. Do you live here? Do you live around here?
Address us, please.
Does he live around here?
What does this have to do?
Because he was
Doesn't.
talking about our water supply. How dare he?
Mr. Bogart had a great point, and he wants to know why the public isn't allowed, they're limited people, actual abutters with reasonable concerns. It's because.
This
Mr.
is
Bogart, are you still
reasonable.
there?
Hold on,
Because
let's
of this-
stop. You have to talk to us
Okay.
and not to
You're
them, and
gonna
this
let
is
them
not,
take out
this is not an argumentative
Okay.
situation,
This
just
is-
please.
You're gonna take out $30 million worth of soil, sand, that filters our aquifer. This is not a laughing matter. This is our wells that are being affected here, okay? These people do not live around here. They could
I
care
had my
less.
first child.
Stop, Mike,
Okay.
stop.
Okay, whatever, but you don't have,
Whatever.
have you tested for PFAS?
So let's talk to us, please.
Okay, I think it's a very valid concern for people to talk about water and to discredit the information about our water when Middleborough just sent Carver a letter about, sorry, we're not building our water treatment plant until 2025. And so now what do? You're gonna bathe your infant in PFAS water? You're gonna give your dog a bowl of PFAS water? You can't take a shower? You don't have a $30,000 system? Really, this is not a laughing matter.
I never said it was, and thank you for your time.
$30 million worth of earth removal out here. is a
Ms. Sheehan
joke.
will give you the 4 minutes. Roger's back, so.
All right, so we're talking about 20+ million cubic yards of sand and gravel that make PSS mine. 3 or 4 million cubic yards of this site across the street, 36 million cubic yards, $36 million worth. So again, you do have to make the finding that this is necessary incidental agriculture.
We can hold the chatter down in the back, that'd be great, thank you.
And apparently you made that finding with these last 4 permits, right? 2003, 2008, 2011, 2017. You found that this was necessary and incidental agriculture at this very same site with the very same plans that Mr. Madden is standing here with you today. So if it was so necessary in 2000 and all those years in the last 10 years, where is the bog? Where is the bog? Mr. Ward just admitted the bog is not there. So you're gonna let him go around the corner and take out another 1,000,005 cubic yards, which is, what, about $15 million worth? And so to go back to necessary and incidental, how incidental is this if it's, what, $200 million worth that they've taken out, enough to fill Gillette Stadium? And that's incidental agriculture. Jim Kane admits in his own affidavit filed in court that he can't basically run his company without sand and gravel mining, that it would be a substantial hardship if he had to stop sand and gravel mining. And he has a permit in Plymouth right across the Ronquinco River on the border of Plymouth and Carver for another 7 million cubic yards of sand and gravel, 36, how many millions of dollars. The largest sand and gravel permit ever granted in the state of Massachusetts, as far as we know. And that's to create yet another 130-acre bog. So they haven't built the bog there, and right across the river, they're gonna build another 134 acres. So this is really necessary agriculture, and it's incidental, but I have not seen any evidence in the record of this whatsoever. And I urge you to read the affidavit if you're looking for information about what this does to our aquifer. Well, we have submitted to you evidence, a sworn affidavit from Professor Scott Horsley from Harvard, who actually looked at the 2 square miles of mining on Federal Road and came to a conclusion after reviewing the sole source aquifer report, the groundwater flow directions, the wells that are at Cranberry Village, and the private wells that are on Federal Road, came to a conclusion that all the sand mining, including this project right here, compromises the protection of public and private drinking water supplies. All these sites are surrounded by several public and private drinking supply wells and include on-site wetland resources. Here's your evidence. I suggest you read it. It's not a laughing matter. We do have evidence. This is a professor at Harvard University, Scott Horsley, co-founder of one of the most preeminent hydrological firms in the state, has raised great concerns, and he does not think that this agriculture, quote unquote, is exempt from the zoning bylaw of Carver. Your zoning bylaw declares the entire town as an aquifer protection district. And the purpose of that is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare by preserving the quality of ground and surface water, which provides existing or potential water supply for the town's residents, cranberry growers, institutions, and businesses. What are the cranberry growers going to do if their water is contaminated? Cranberries are 95% water, would you say? So what's going to happen to them when they become contaminated?
Thank you very much, Ms. Sheehan.
I urge you to read.
I do appreciate your time.
And this will be in the record of the court hearing.
Thank you very much. At this point, it's getting late in the evening. I'd like to start talking with the board about.
Excuse me.
No more public comments?
Nope.
We have one, she's been waiting the whole time.
I can't,
Yes.
I feel so unwelcome here. I came the first time and I stood over there because they said I had my abutter notice that I could talk and you said I can't talk. So I waited. My family had the
Have you
flu and my
raised your hand
daughter
this
had
evening?
scarlet fever.
Been waiting your
Yes.
turn, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Relax.
Jen, I'll give you the 2 minutes.
Relax.
Can I come up there, please?
Relax.
No, you made a good point earlier. I'm sorry. When you said that when a bog is done, it's not a house. And that's exactly what we want. We just want to know when is it a bog. And Mr. Ward, you said you didn't see a problem with it down there. But we bought our house down there to raise our children. And when you're living in an alarm clock situation with it noisy all day, it's hard. And Mr. Garrison, when he was on the board, he was so kind and understanding and came to us and worked with us. Mr. Madden, you're very familiar with us. I've been following this project. I'm going to run over my 2 minutes. I don't know if anyone has any more to give this.
Jen, you can have my 2 minutes.
But and someone back there was laughing too about the not starting before 7 a.m. I have so many documents and emails that they did start before 7 a.m. when the permit said 7:30. Okay, but
This morning included, if I may, at 6:50 this morning on my way out, they were working.
Happens all the time.
like I have a binder of notes and I went through it earlier today to try to gather my thoughts. So on January 29th, 2007, an environmental notification form was filed in regard to this specific project. For the record, we moved here in 2011. September 15th, 2010, Makepeace applied for a MEPA permit for this project area and stated an estimated completion date of December of 2015. I have all of these documents in here, I'm not making it up. They had requested a 16.5 acre bog system, 2.5 acre reservoir recovery pond, and 13 acres of bog roads, which seems very familiar to this. April 1st, 2011, the Earth Removal Committee approved of what was called a commercial earth removal permit for 1,440,000 cubic yards in this area. February of 2013, a traffic study by Vanessa Associates said that 80% of the truck traffic of the site would turn left and go south on Federal Road toward Wareham, and only 20% would come north to Cranberry Road. But in June of 2016, Jim Kane told me that at that point it had actually been more like 50-50, that they didn't follow what the permit was. And at the January 31st meeting, Mr. Madden, you said then that all the traffic from this project is going to go north to Cranberry Road.
He misspoke. I was there. He misspoke. It's in our application going left. I used to work right in that scale house. I know how serious this is, Jen. He's misspoke.
In June of 2016, at the 80 Makepeace quarterly meeting, which I went to because again I care, I live there. Jim Kane said that Reed Custom Soils, they couldn't do all their mixing where they were supposed to out of sight. So at that southerly border that you guys saw where the slope is and they're clearing, those piles there, he said that's where they're doing their mixing because they couldn't do it all where they wanted. That's what those piles down there are. In February of 2017, the Carver Conservation Commission had a public hearing for a 22.6 acre bog, a 2.9 acre recovery pond, and, quote, enhancement of an existing cranberry bog through the removal of vegetation to eliminate shading and improve air circulation. On February 22nd of that year, the Earth Removal Committee had a public hearing on that same matter. So I'm just confused as to what keeps coming up. On April 14th of 2017, the Earth Removal Committee granted a permit for 945,200 cubic yards to be removed from that area. The hours of operation, I believe this is when Mr. Garrettson was helping us. The hours of operation were Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturday, 7:30 to noon. Like I said, those hours have not been followed. Another order of conditions was that no trees would be removed from the top of the slope, but that was not followed because when Mr. Garrettson came over, he said, you will not see through that tree line. And you will not get to see anything from Ocean Spray. We see the lights from Ocean Spray all the time, especially during season, and Mr. Garrettson said that we wouldn't. The order of operations said that white noise equipment is to be used, which isn't always the case, but again, Mr. Kane has been, fairly amenable when I've had to email him, but that was in the order. I'd appreciate that to be there. January 31st, 2022. This is a kicker for me. Makepeace submitted a final environmental impact report, which is this document. They submitted this final environmental impact report to the Commonwealth as part of their MEPA requirements. And in here, page 112 says that Phase C1, the Wankinko Cranberry Bog expansion, which is this portion of the project, it literally says, quote unquote, it has been cleared. 16.5 acre bog, 2.5 acre reservoir, 13 acres of bog roads. They told the Commonwealth it's cleared, so what do we need to clear now? I mean, it's right in here. Beals and Thomas wrote it with AV development and that. Like, it says it's clear. They literally told the Commonwealth it's cleared, and now they're asking to clear more. I don't understand. Like, I feel like I'm being lied to, my husband being lied to. I've been called the neighborhood representative for being the only one who showed up. And you know what? I'll take the crap if people are coming at me, because we're being lied to. September 7th, 2022, your meeting agenda, and I wasn't at the meeting, but was for a 1-year extension of the permit for map 131, lot 2-4, pit 17, lot 1-4, pit 24, lot 1-2. See, honestly, I don't know what that means, but another extension. And then May of 2023, the GAF engineering applied for the earth removal permit, which I'm guessing is this one, for a 3-year time frame. And proposing the hours Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, but like that's 3 more years. This was supposed to be done in 2015. I'm getting there, I'm almost done. June 2023, I went to the Conservation Commission. Makepeace asked for permission to do a 22.26 acre bog, 2.9 acre tailwater recovery pond. At the meeting, I asked Conservation Commission about conditioning the hours and the noise and stuff for the project, and they said this is the place to come. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm taking so long.
And that's why I'm letting you.
July 19th, 2023, the Conservation Commission meeting. Mr. Madden had said that they had come to the Conservation Commission all the way back in 2008. Gary Flaherty, the Carver conservation agent, I'm not sure if he's still here, but he and Savory Moore at that meeting said, and again, quote, the work is basically done and the land will be plugged in the spring. I had to ask what plugged meant. They said planted. Savory and Mr. Flaherty said the work's done. What are we, I don't understand what we're doing. If they said, they told the state it's done. Savory and Gary told me it's done. Last month, Mr. McVeigh said there want 22.3 acres of bogs and 2.9 acres of retention plant. I don't understand what's happening and what's not happening. And when is it going to be a bog and not a house or a pit? I just want, if this is phase C1, it's supposed to be done. So I just want to know, how does this relate to the Wankinko expansion project phase C1? Because we've been being told since before we moved here that it's going to be done. And I would request, if you're going to do the permit today, which as a former planning board member, we never did it that way. We always wanted the document in front of us to read the order of conditions before we voted on it. You guys might do things differently, and that's fine. That's just my experience. But if you were gonna do it tonight, I would request that you do the hours like the original permit with the 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 7:30 to noon on Saturday. Please condition that machinery use the white noise safety sound instead of the traditional beeping. And then the dust keeping Federal Road clear, and then establishing the truck ratios of 80-20 as initially stated again in the original form. We've been trying to work with the town and make peace, and again, Mr. Garrettson was great. We live there. Mr. Ward, I know you think there's not a problem. You came for 15 minutes on a Saturday. Try living in the country. And I'm sorry, we had the flu and one of my daughters had scarlet fever. My husband told me, they're out there right now. You can't go, you're contagious.
Jen, thank you so much for your comments. They're well listened to and heard. And this is the type of stuff that we, the board, like to hear from and direct abutter, so thank you.
I just felt like, what did they tell the state they're doing?
Give them a permit.
Jen. So thank you very much.
Sorry, Sean.
Sorry you're dealing with this.
What's that? Yep, there was.
Sorry, babe.
You did good. Okay, board, what are we thinking?
Red flag? Any way to...
Have a comment in the back.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna close it to public comment now. It's 5 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Public hearing. You can't cut off public comment during a
30
public
seconds.
hearing. No, you can't.
Welcome to our world.
I apologize, we are done with public comment from here.
You have a constitutional right to free speech at a public hearing. All right.
Thank you very much for your comments. You can hold it down.
I just want the record to reflect
Thank you,
that
Nick. Appreciate
they're
it.
denying someone the opportunity to speak.
The board?
I would just suggest that we should include what Jen's talking about. The white noise, the backup alarms are not something that I would hope the neighborhood would have to listen to.
Sure.
And I'd like to have her mention what the other specific ones that she was considering.
7:30 to 4 Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 12 on a Saturday, white noise alarms, dust control, which has been taken care of here, and an 80-20 split. 80% going left, 20% going right with traffic.
And what about Mr. Bogart? Didn't he have something to?
They were basically the same. My just question was if that berm goes away, you know, that changes the sound effects that we're gonna hear. We're gonna hear what's going on. We're gonna hear the construction more than we do now. And that's where if the project's not gonna finish, it could be really life-changing.
Well, the removal of those berms are needed in order to construct the bogs.
Right.
So that's what's going to happen at this point. So,
All right, what's the board's pleasure?
So with those additions, I feel we have to go forward with this permit.
What the hell?
I'd like to see the bogs leave
Try living there.
these prior
Say that.
permits that we had approved before we approved another permit.
Okay.
Which ones?
So they're talking about the stuff on the north end of the property that they're working on now. Mr. Madden, is that correct?
Yes.
They're working on it now, even though they don't have a permit?
No,
They're not hauling out, they're flattening the bog, just as we've talked about here.
to construct the bog.
They're constructing the bog.
The stockpile
So-
materials.
What's the, what timeframe do we have? Any idea of how long that would take in order to construct those bogs?
The first piece,
On the north half of behind the berm.
immediately. We're gonna work immediately.
But how long will it take? Ish.
I thought, if I might, Mr. Chairman, I thought that I was told the planting of, I think, the first 8 acres was gonna take place this June.
Okay.
Okay.
And those would be for these two sections here. That's the first 16 acres, or, sorry, they're 8.5.
The furthest northernmost
Furthest
stuff
to
closest to Sean and Jen's house.
And then the next two would be here. Then we would have to also develop some water
Yep.
for the irrigation needs of the new plantings. So that's why we showed that phase one.
I'm sorry. Just hold it down, please.
You're gonna develop water.
I'm sorry, hold it down.
So we're doing 8.5, and we're gonna start planting in June.
Yes, and I would think that the other 8.5 within that section would be progressing through the summer as well.
We did talk through some of the issues as far as when this project was going to be completed in the phases, and we did talk about that on our site visit. And I do believe, if I'm correct, this is the last part of this property to be developed. Is that correct, this bog, or is that just for this project?
That's for this project. We're going to start north and move to the
I
south.
think you're asking if this is the last piece of developed cranberry bog on the parcel?
On the parcel.
That's correct.
Is this the end of it?
This is the end.
This is the last?
But this isn't a bog at the end, it's a staging area.
Well, it's got plenty of cranberry bogs on it.
I don't want to
He's not
interject.
mining to build a bog, he's mining to take shade away from the bogs.
What?
Read the permit, look at the map.
So, let's,
May I
to the
just,
board.
can I just offer, I have a copy of the order of conditions if you want to see like what they were written in the past.
We're okay with that for right now.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Just as I was referencing, I have it.
Appreciate it. What's the board's pleasure?
I made the motion
You made a motion to
include,
to approve
to
the
approve
project
the project
to
with these restrictions, recommendations within that permit.
the 7:30 to 4 Monday through Friday,
Yep.
7:30 to 12 on Saturday.
Yep.
The white noise backup alarms on all equipment on site.
Yep.
That dust control spelled out in the permit application.
So all the things that were on the application, yes.
And the 80% going left and 20% going right.
And no more than 50 trucks.
That was gonna be my next question, 50 trips.
How about testing the
Is
house?
that,
And that's
is,
the current plan that we already have in place.
Test the wells.
correct,
80% going left.
correct.
Thank you.
So we have a motion. Everybody understand the motion?
I'll
Second on the motion?
I'll second.
So Mr. Ward and Roger. Any further discussion from the board on the motion on the table?
Test the
Mr.
wells.
Harrison, how do you say?
Aye.
Mr. Ward?
Aye.
Mr. Shores?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
On top of all those juicy subsidies from our tax dollars.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We need a motion to close the public hearing now.
Thank you.
Can you keep the noise down? We're still not done yet here, folks.
Surrounded by all that, yeah.
Thanks for All right, so the last thing on our open meeting agenda, keep it down, that'd be great, I'd appreciate it.
They don't do that here.
You know, the last thing on our agenda, before we close and go into executive, is we had a formal request for a cease and desist at Cranberry Point Energy, located at 31R Main Street, which has been a very large topic of discussion and email for the last week and a half with town council and me. We've chatted about their progression through the special permitting process. They were issued an original permit in 2019. At 2019, if nothing had changed, they would have had to get an earth removal permit. They have gone back in front of the planning board and got a reissuance of a special permit in 2023, which exempts them from a actual earth removal permit based on the subdivision rule in the bylaw that was
But that's not
amended
a
in April of
subdivision.
2022. So that's where we stand right now. I'm gonna consider that matter closed. Town
That means
council?
we have no authority.
We have no authority. It's taken care of under the special permit that was issued by planning.
But planning board says it's you who make, you guys are throwing the ball back and forth on this one again. Planning board says to come to you, and you have the authority to stop this. And then you turn and you tell the planning board that they have the authority,
If
and
was-
it goes back and forth.
If it was prior to 2019, and that was their permit, they would have had to come in front of us. But because they've been back in front of planning in 2023, the new earth removal bylaw exempts them from having to come in front of us
But the-
because of an approved subdivision plan.
But that's not what the plan, it's not a subdivision.
It's
The planning board said that they had to come
It's an
before you.
exemption in the earth removal document that is there because it's subsequent to 2023. This is not open for discussion. This is me to tell the board what's been happening. So at that point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn open session and go into executive session to discuss potential litigation with respect to fees assessed in connection with a project by SLT Construction off of Spring Street. The committee will not go back into open session tonight. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So is that because they're suing the town to get their fees back? Is that what's going on?
After they sold the sand.
After they sold all the sand. And after they're expanding onto Marup's property, why don't you go take a look at that?
So we're gonna close the meeting at 9:08. So roll call, Mike,
Michael Harrison, yes.
Dick,
Board, yes.
Scott, yes. So we are now closing the open meeting and